Welcome, adventurers! You've made it to the Wind Down, the live stream at the end of the Geekverse. It's a chill place to hang out here as the sun sets on another day. We're here to have a little chat, reflect on the day's successes, and prepare for a better tomorrow. So settle in with your favorite beverage this evening.
May I tempt you with a cup of chamomile?
Why, thank you, Dory. I would love a mug of tea this evening, but perhaps you would rather have some coffee, though I do recommend decaf this late in the evening. Or perhaps maybe a cold brew is more your style.
Oh, no thank you, Dory. A little red wine. For me, I think.
Sounds like an excellent choice, Gandalf. Whatever you want, it's yours. Could I offer you a bourbon, a martini, an old-fashioned, or something perhaps a little stronger? Ugh, well, I mean, if that's really your thing, then okay, but I hope we can find something a bit better than that.
Romulan ale. Why, Bones, you know this is illegal.
I only use it for medicinal purposes.
All right, now we're talking. I'm Heath, and I'll be your host. Welcome to my home. Come one, come all, writers, artists, sculptors, storytellers, board gamers, streamers, dungeon masters, fans of sci-fi, fantasy, geeks of all kinds. Whatever your fandom, you have a place here. For soon it will be time for another long rest so that we can recover our hit points, our spells, and our abilities, so we'll be ready to fight on for another day tomorrow. But first, we all need a little time to reflect. Because you've survived another long, perilous day of wilderness treks, dungeoneering, and random encounters. And that's worth celebrating. Let's tell the tale. It's time for the Wind Down. It will improve your life. It really will. Give it a chance. Here we go. Hey, good evening, everybody. Great to have you here. Yes, as Sable Phoenix says, hey, it's a Monday night stream. Cool. Well, yes, it is. Because last night, which ordinarily we've been streaming on Sunday nights, starting kind of this year, I was in a game with BGD, that's Chris Bynum, and then also Better with Bacon, who I see is also here. We were in a game last night. Chris was running his tech noir, game. I don't know how we describe this. Blade Runner inspired game, and so we've been playing that once a month. And so last night we had that, and it was a fantastic session. I say again that if you ever have an opportunity to play a game that BGD, so on his YouTube handle is BGD, when you see him, you should absolutely do that when you're at like an online convention or something like that. It was another fantastic adventure session last night. We played for about, I don't know, 3 or 3.5 hours or something like that. So that was already booked. So we did that. And so I did not stream last night, but I was like, I've got some things going on and I want to talk about it with everybody. And so I would like to stream. There might not be anybody here tonight, but I'm glad we got Bacon and we've got Sable Phoenix. So yeah, that's what's been going on. So that's why I'm here tonight. And it would be great if I were able to stream more nights. But so went ahead and did this. I've had a very chill day today. But then yesterday I did a whole bunch of work. So one of the things that I realized needed to happen as we've been working on our Celtic interpretation of old school essentials, which can be done for Rabavania, or I had been increasingly thinking that, hey, we should just do as a standalone kind of Celtic source book. People might be interested in that, even if they are not interested in Rabavania, which is fine. We'd been doing the OSE, but, we had been working on our modification of Old School Essentials, and I was like, you know what? Those things really need to be in the same book. The Old School Essentials and then our modification of Old School Essentials really need to be, I think, in the same book. I don't think it makes sense to do a different book for that. Just have the, when you've got the same character classes, most of the write-up for the character class is exactly the same. But then when you're looking at the like the progression table and things like that. Well, that changes. So why not have one on one page and then one on the other? So in that case, I was like, so basically what I really should do then is to go back and take a look at where we were with that and see if I can get a write-up about understanding what that is and how to make kind of the hacked edge, we were calling it, modification or alteration of Old School Essentials. So I did a lot of cleaning the house today, but yesterday I did a whole lot of work on this. And what I did was I started to, did more than start, did a considerable amount of work trying to upload all of that information into a relational database that is accessible online through API. Because, a lot of people have great things like being able to create characters online, doing random characters, like a random character or a character generator, which is not the same thing. A random character gives you one random, but a character generator would walk you through the character generation process so that you could then hit print or something and you'd have a character for that night, which I think would be freaking fantastic to have. But in order to be able to do something like that, well, there are a couple of different ways you could do that, but one of the ways that you would do that is by setting that up into all of the information up into a database. And so Sunday before the game, I spent a considerable amount of time uploading a whole bunch of information into Supabase, which I didn't know a whole lot about, but it has been really great. I have been really liking it to upload a whole bunch of information into a format that will then be accessible online. And I would guess, I realized at the end of Saturday, I was like, I didn't upload some of the information that wasn't my variation of Old School Essentials, but maybe I should have just uploaded everything, and I could go back and do that. Right? So that if you want just a straight Old School Essentials character, you could get it. But then again, probably that already exists, right? I mean, I don't know. I guess you could just Google it. But I'm guessing that for most game systems like that, like OSE character generator. Yeah, here, choose a generator. Well, okay, actually that one doesn't have it. That page doesn't have anything there. OSE advanced generators. I don't know. I would get my thought was that anyway, probably those things already existed. Well, here's one. Old School character generator. Start. Select your class. Okay. So yeah. Okay. So I mean, there's something like that online anyway. I kind of figured there was something like that online anyway for Old School Essentials, but it sure would be nice to be able to put that up with a whole bunch of anything that we created here, either to be able to create a character, to do random character generators, or I had always for many years been interested in doing some type of text-based adventure game. That's something that has been in the back of my mind for years. Could we do some kind of text-based adventure game? And there have been about 3 times in my life when I'm like, hey, is the technology there where I could just do that? Now, obviously, I know that the technology is there to do a text-based adventure game because those have been done for a long time. But I'm talking about me as a non-technical person. Can I just sit down and create something that is runnable online and is enjoyable to people? And every time I've kind of dipped my toe in that, the answer has been like, no, okay, this is too complex. This is too complex for a person like me to just create. But then earlier this month, I was working on some different things with some different tech, and I realized the answer might be maybe. The answer might be maybe. But either way, whether you're running a random character generator or a character generator, or whether you're running like some type of text-based adventure game, the lowest level of that is working through a database, right? And so let me show you that first. I want to work through some of the hacked edge rules. But let me see. Is this yeah, okay. Here, let me take this down and then I'll put this back up. Maybe this is all stuff that has been done long before. And probably is, and things that are not all that maybe all that new. But like here is, and I'm logged into Superbase here, and I called it Zorn's Dungeon. That's been a name that's stuck with me for a long time. That would be the name of the text-based adventure, like Zorn's Dungeon. So I was like, I brought up, let me see if I can increase, yeah, maybe make it a little bit more readable online. So I brought up Zorn's Dungeon here. And basically, of course, a game like that is essentially a database anyway. So it just seems like there's a lot of things that you could do if you loaded all of your game's statistics into a database that could then be accessed by API. So on Sunday, I did quite a bit of that. So we'll go down. Let's go table editor. So what kind of information did I load in? I started loading in information for players. And I did get this kind of working on a HTML page. Well, not kind of working. I got it working, although there's more stuff that I have to add on to it. In fact, probably what we need to do while we're working on this is like make a list of things that need to be changed. But I got it working so that, there is a web page that you go to. And if you want to create a, an account in order to, manipulate this database in some kinds of ways, that you could do that. And I got it so that you sign up and then it creates your player here, which could have multiple characters. And we want to have a relationship between where we have, one player, but that player can have multiple characters, like a stable or something like that. And then there's like authentication stuff with the database that I haven't nailed down 100%, but, was working on all of that. Got to incorporate some players. And then, okay, then another thing you'd need would be characters, right? And I haven't made any characters here, but I did kind of build the database structure for the kinds of things that we would need to specify characters in this system. And like I said, I think it might be the case that maybe I should just go ahead and load in all of the OSE data. And then that way you could make a hacked edge or just a straight OSE character. Maybe. But, what are the kinds of things that need to be specified for a character? They include things like name, level, experience points. We're using stamina, so stamina max, wounds for a list of wounds that you might have, wound threshold. I might need to change the name wound threshold. That might need to be wounds max. Always trying to get this right, but it's like the maximum number of wounds, because we had divided this into not just hit points, but wounds and stamina, conditions that might be affecting the character, what you've got equipped on your head, what you've got equipped on your neck, what you've got equipped on your torso, on your feet, equipped on your main hand, equipped on your offhand, equipped main hand worn, equipped offhand worn, equipped belt pouch, equipped belt sheath, equipped belt skin, equipped special. I think that's for a Ring of Return that I was working on. Backpack contents, backpack slots, strength, intelligence, wisdom, dex, con, all of our basic stats there. These are in no particular order. Charisma, and then status, if the character is living or dead or in a dungeon or something like that. And then when the character was created and what kind of languages they speak. But then I was like, okay, so what we also need to have is character classes. So I started to upload all of the character classes from Old School Essentials with a hacked edge modification. But I was like, while I'm sitting here and doing this, I might as well not just say, hey, let's go ahead and practice with fighter or something. I'll just go ahead and load up. I believe it's 7 different Old School Essentials kinds of character classes, which are cleric, dwarf, elf, fighter, halfling, magic user, and thief, and enter in their information. So we got the hit die there, their prime requisite 1, prime requisite 2, Requirements, I might end up changing how the requirements are stored, but that's your basic stat requirements. Maximum level for each one. Default languages. I'm not really sure. I'm real thrilled with how languages are handled. But then whether or not they are allowed shields. I was using maximum armor tier. Thunder says classic. Yes, exactly. Classic. This is even race as class. Right. This was old school essentials, which I understand that they're going to be coming out with books this year where everything is a divided race and class, which, I mean, there's a lot to be said for that, obviously. But I was just going, let's go old school. Let's make this a modification. The Hacked Edge is a modification of old school kinds of stuff. So we're just going with that. And then whether or not you're allowed to have shields, use a shield. Your maximum armor tier. Now, this is different than just Thaco. This is a Hacked Edge difference, which we've talked about when we were doing Hacked Edge before. We were saying that we were going to have armor. I don't know exactly what the name is here. It's called max armor tier here, but something like that your different levels of armor are either unarmored, lightly armored, medium armor, heavy armor, or extra heavy armor. And so if you just map those from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, I believe it goes up to 4, you give a maximum armor tier for the amount of armor that particular character class is able to wear. So for instance, magic user it must remain unarmored. That doesn't mean there's not some other way for them to get armor, because they could wear like a special robe that gives them armor, or they could have mage armor through a spell or something like that. But going old school, they don't wear armor. Like a thief can only wear light armor. The halfling, the elf, and the cleric can wear up to heavy armor, and then the dwarf and the fighter are the only two that can go up to extra heavy armor. If you love databases, I'm sure you really love this stream. I started to divide. I was trying to figure out how, there's a lot of stuff that's written in like old school essentials, which is the case with any kind of role-playing game that's written down, but that's rather difficult to encode. And so I ended up coming up with two different categories here for allowed weapon type, and making weapon type different from weapon complexity. So I kind of did an import from 5th edition that had the differentiation between simple and martial. And that way, simple and martial in complexity, but then allowed weapons probably also need to have like piercing here. This is particularly important from the perspective of the cleric, that, okay, the cleric can only use blunt weapons, but they can be simple weapons like a club, or something more martial like a mace or something like that. The magic user, we also ran into some situations here. They can use edged or blunt so long as it's simple, which would allow something like a dagger and a staff. Now that's a little bit of a change. That's an often house ruled kind of thing. The wizards can also use staffs rather than just daggers. But I'm not. This may still have to be worked on a little bit. This classification between allowed weapon types and then also the complexity. Thunder Wolf says thieves can use, the clerics can use frying pans. Yeah, exactly. Right. Yes. So you can whack somebody with a frying pan. That's a blunt object that's simple or improvised. Right. Yeah, sure. You can do that. So I need to work on this potentially a little bit to make sure that it's working. But in order to get the complexity of what's just written down in something like OSE, I had to divide those two things. And like I said, probably a lot of people have already made these kinds of things. But this is what I was working on. I added a category here called valid worlds, because if this is something that I want to continue with and have this kind of structure here, then I might want to use it for a bunch of the different worlds that we've been developing here on stream. And so I just called this for the moment core. That this is just your, this is your basic old school kind of fantasy stuff, like was just being talked about in chat. So, so I put this in here so that if you wanted to sort by what world the class was valid for, you would be able to do that. Oh, I do have max weapon size. So see, what weapons you can use are complicated because there are 3 things that control it, actually. There are allowed, what I was calling type, although this could be renamed to damage type, allowed weapon damage. Whether or not it's something simple or more martial, but then also size. So we have restrictions on size of weapons. So this is max weapon size. So clerics can use large weapons, but dwarves can only use up to medium weapons. Elves can use up to large weapons. Fighters can use large weapons. Halflings can use up to medium weapons. Magic users can use up to large weapons. That was part of it. That I think this actually allows at the moment magic users to use clubs. And I was trying to come up with some kind of elegant way to disallow that. But on the other hand, it might be fine if the magic user decides they want to use a club, because a large weapon, the staff is a large weapon. So you can only use simple weapons. They can be edged or blunt and up to large size. So that's the one that was, but I was like, okay, maybe if the moment, let's just run with it. And then the thief can use up to medium weapons, simple and martial, blunt, edge, thrown, and missile. When this is done, right, exactly. That was one of the things that I was working on, was like trying to figure out how to do a character builder from this, right? To do random characters. I mean, one thing you could do is just do random characters, but then another thing that you could do is have it walk you through the character creation process, because that I am a big advocate that character creation doesn't need to take more than 15 minutes. And when I was talking about character creation taking 15 minutes, I was talking about with pen and paper. But, if you're doing something online, I think you should be able to get done with something like Hacked Edged or OSE in like 2 or 3 minutes, and then hit print and get your character. I mean, I think. So I do have it world gate. So if you potentially need some kind of world gate, you can do that. Infravision. This is just going by old school essentials. Which one of those classes have infravision? And so that's dwarf and elf that do. Size, I import it because you have to work in the halfling has size related bonuses, and so you have to keep track of sizes. And what I did was just import the D&D 5th edition kind of size. So humans and dwarves are medium, but the halflings are small. So I've got a size record there. Bonus in melee, and nobody has that, but I did go ahead and create that field. But then bonus in ranged combat, the halflings have that. So everything that's on this table right here is something that is level independent. No matter what level it is that you are, this is something that stands. So nothing here is level dependent. So like the bonus for ranged attacks to the halflings is not level dependent. They just get +1. Infravision is not level dependent. Size is not level dependent. What weapon you can use is not level dependent. So I created that, and then thank you, Better with Bacon was like, yeah, I hope something comes out of this, because once I build this structure out, then I think that I will be able to use this for all of the different worlds. Once I get all the different relationships right, and then there was a whole bunch of other stuff that had to do with like authenticating a user to log in and stuff like that. And so I started to work on that too. That's not the fun part to show on stream, as if showing a database on stream is. But it's loaded in right, and it will be accessible by API, which means that stuff will be able to happen to it. So then, okay, so that's the classes. So what really took quite a bit of time was this. This is what I spent a lot of time working on, which was loading in all of the class specific information. Class, not only class specific, but level specific class information, because you've got two things. Everything that's stored in this, that it goes for a particular character class regardless of level. But then over here, you go to class progression, and this stores all of the data that changes by class, changes by level, changes by class by level. So I have this sorted right now by class ID. So I've got clerics. You can say this is sorted by just alphabetical order: cleric, dwarf, elf, fighter, halfling, magic user, thief. Yeah, okay. So those are our 7 different classes. You go over here. Let me see if I can. Okay. So there we go. Class ID. Maybe get a little bit more stuff on screen here. Okay. So you can see here that like cleric level 1, experience XP required. So I mean, what kind of fields did I end up having to have? I recorded XP required for everybody, and then also stamina. So since we don't have just hit points, like I said, I could come back in here and I could put back in the original OSE hit points, and maybe I should. That way you can toggle whatever on or off. But at the moment, we were dividing stamina. We were dividing hit points into stamina and wounds. Let me see where I can find. Where's wounds? Wounds base right here. Let me go grab it. I'll drag it over. Well, I lost it. Wounds base. Here we go. Wounds represents actual physical injury. Here we go. So now you can see right here, we've got stamina and then your base wounds. And this was built up upon the old school assumption that the normal man can take 6 points of damage. But you're going to add your strength to this. So that gives, like, the cleric here, stamina at level 1 of 0, but then 5 wounds plus strength. So it's kind of like getting maximum hit points at first level. It's kind of just saying, okay, we're going to give maximum hit points at first level. And then your stamina starts to get rolled at level 2. So for instance, a cleric has 3d2 stamina starting at level 2. And then you go up to 2d6, 3d6, and that starts to kind of be your ordinary hit point. We need to talk about whether or not we need to add constitution to stamina. We'll talk about that when we get to talking about the actual rules here. Because I did not have stamina or constitution added to stamina. Now, I wouldn't add it to this data table anyway. That would be part of the logic that actually builds the character. So the logic would always know to add con to this. I was not having it do that, but we may need to have that. Stamina, wounds, and of course, like for the cleric here, the cleric being a half caster, like their wounds go up every 4 levels. So they get an extra wound at level 5, and then going up and up to level 14 where they would have 8. I've got this might be something very interesting to you. Better with Bacon, because I know you were an advocate originally of damage by class. And so I spent a considerable amount of time thinking about the damage by class for each one of these. And so rather than having damage determined by weapon, I've put in damage determined by class here. And we have 3 different weapon categories for each class: damage small, damage medium, and damage large. And so you reference that here, and that can change by level. So that's not a class-based thing. That's a class-based level kind of thing. Because as you can see, like for small weapons, starting at level, is this level 5? At level 5 again, the cleric goes from over here, D4 for small up to D6. Okay. And that his large goes from D6 to D8. So I spent quite a bit of time working on a layout for the rules, which we actually did on stream one morning as well, starting to kind of lay out what kind of damage we think is appropriate for. I think we were just working on fighter, but I went through all of them and tried to come up with these. And now not all of them even have a damage progression, because if you go down to, for instance, does Thief have damage progression? No, Thief does not. Like Thief is 1d4, 1d6, 1d8 for their life. They get better at other things. I was trying to emphasize the fact that, well, if you want to be a fighter, then you need to play something that fights, right? Because you might not even get damage progression. Magic user has no damage progression. They are D4, D4, D4 for small, medium, and large. And of course, they may not have, they have further weapon restrictions, which wouldn't let them, use things anyway. So, but that is D4, D4, D4. Let's take a look at, okay, so Better with Bacon says, I like it. I thought you might. I think that you've been right about this. When you first said something about class-based damage, I wasn't sure what to think about it. But actually, I completely agree with you. For a game like this, for an old school kind of game like this, actually, I think that going class-based damage is the way to go. Make it class-based per level. That means the fighter really becomes... he can really kick some butt, which I think is the way to go. So the fighter can really kick some butt. The fighter starts out with small weapons, D6, medium damage, D8, and then large weapons, D10. And he goes up every 3 levels, or only maintains the same one for 3 levels. So he's D6, D8, D10. Then he goes to D8, 2D4, and 1D12. And that 2d4 becomes really important because in the Hacked Edge, the way I had the rules written, and maybe people remember that if you roll, that uses, instead of using criticals, because you're not rolling to hit, you just roll damage. We're going to keep this moving. If you attack, you just roll your damage. And so how do you know if you crit? Well, you use exploding dice. If a die hits the highest number, then it explodes and you get to roll again. And the die that you roll on the explosion goes directly to wounds, not stamina. So by rolling 2d4 for medium, he becomes a crit machine, starting at about 4th level using medium weapons. And then he goes to... 2d4 for small, and then 2d6, and then 2d8. So his damage escalates, and he does a lot of crits, which contrasts with the dwarf, which also needs to be a heavy hitter. But the dwarf never gets the multiple dice, so they hit harder. Starting with, let's look over here. So dwarf right here. Starting at D6, D8, D10 for small, medium, and large. But then he escalates at one point to making his medium D10. So like his battle axe goes up to D10, and then he ends up with large at D12. But he's never getting the multiple dice bonus, which doesn't give him the critical damage of the fighter, which I think is important. Because you do see a lot of people when they're talking about old school essentials saying that the fighter is just inferior to the dwarf. And I do think there is some legitimacy to saying that. The dwarf gets a lot of special extra bonus stuff. The dwarf has like similar hit points and so forth. I mean, if you look at just fighter and dwarf, I can completely understand why in raw OSE, people say, okay, the dwarf is just superior to the fighter. Now, he doesn't get all the levels, right? He does have his level cap. But a lot of people, especially if you're just playing, up to like level 8 or something, which is, not many, how many games get up to that anyway. People would think the dwarf is superior, but here's a real reason for the fighter to be superior, because the fighter is really turning out the crits. And then there are other things that go on there, but like that's one. Like if you want damage, well then it's fighter. If you want staying power, and then it's dwarf, right? Elf. I mean, the elf is interesting because the elf is a really expensive class to play. In old school kind of essentials, they balance this by old school gaming. They balance a lot of things by classes. I mean, it takes 4,000 experience points to become a level 2 elf. So since I'm doing a modification of old school essentials, I get to import all of that. Like the dwarf is only 2,200 to get to level 2, but it takes 4,000 for the elf to get to level 2. And it used the like Thaco progression of a fighter, but here I said, okay, they're 1d6, 1d8, 1d10, and then they become fighter-like, but it takes them until 7th level to get to the medium level. When they've got to have, what is that? 1,200,000 experience points. It's a lot. So they have fighter progression, but they never get up to the highest level of fighter. Because I mean, you can only be level 10 elf anyway. So you never get the highest level of fighter, but you are delayed in getting the higher damage. And it takes you a lot more experience points to get it. So that's just one of the, elements of old school essentials, I think. I put in title there so that at name rank at title rank at level 9, you get some kind of name here. I loaded in all of your save versus death, your save versus wands, your save versus paralysis, your save versus breath, your save versus spells. Loaded all of that in here because that changes by not only class but by level. If there was really something that I couldn't put anywhere else, I put it in features, like the elves' immunity to ghoul paralysis. That's gonna be something that's gonna have to be that'd have to be coded into like a text-based adventure game. But I couldn't figure out any other way to put that other than just putting that in features and saying immune to ghoul paralysis. Oh, hey, Innerlight, welcome. Innerlight says, what are we talking about? Well, we were talking about my modification of old school essentials, which was the hacked edge, and I had been working on that for the last couple of days. And while I was working on it, what I did is I put this into a relational database online, Supabase, so that all this data can be accessed through API. And so I was like, if I build all this out, let me make this kind of table the source of truth, basically, for what all these characters are like. That way it's accessible online. You could do character generators, you could do random character generators, and maybe also one day you could even do something like a text-based adventure game, because all of this is loaded in. Well, this is I'm calling Hacked Edge Fated Edge Lite, because Fated Edge has a completely new resolution mechanic and is completely built from the beginning up. So Hacked Edge uses a lot of my ideas about game design, but just imports a whole bunch of stuff from old school essentials. It doesn't try to be completely disruptive to the to old school essentials. It just tries to import kind of the best of what I'm thinking with, while still importing a whole bunch of the stuff from old school essentials that's already out there. Because with Fated Edge, it wouldn't be compatible. But the advantage here is that you have a whole bunch of compatibility with a bunch of other things that have already been published for old school essentials. Here's another feature for the halflings: 90% chance to hide in woods or undergrowth. I couldn't figure out a good way to put that in, so I just made note of that in features. But also, if you're in a dungeon and you're doing some kind of text-based adventure game, that wouldn't come up all that often anyway. So right now I just relegated that to features. I think that this is also something that would have to be involved in the combat system if you were doing a text-based adventure. I said, what if we just also say that wizards, they're D4 and that's all they're ever going to be as far as damage goes. and they cannot critical hit. If you're a wizard, you're a magic user, rather, you're not going to be able to critical hit. So there were a couple of those things which I just could not figure out how to put into some other type of more actionable database design. Extra one hit die attack. I did go ahead and put in the idea that the fighters, this also distinguishes fighters from dwarves, is that the fighters have the special ability that once they gain, I believe, level 3. Level 3. Once they hit level 3, which I understand is a very common kind of house rule here for fighters, they gain the ability to have extra attacks so long as their opponent is 1 HD or less. I noticed that in Old School Essentials, fighters can just get extra attacks if you're going above level 14. There are some recommendations for what happens above level 14, and then you just get flat out get extra attacks. So I had to say that this is extra one hit die attacks. So if you're above level 14, you could just get more than one attack on the dragon. But if you are at level 3, you can get extra attacks against one hit die creatures or less. 1, and then this is 3, 4, 5, 6. At level 6, you get 2 extra attacks so long as you're attacking a one hit die creature or less. Blah blah blah. Nobody else gets that, but that's put in for those spells. Of course, spells for first level, spells for second level, spells for third, spells for fourth, spells for sixth level. All of that has been put in for every class, and of course, not every class has spells, so they're zeroed out quite a bit. Handling the cleric's turning ability was also kind of difficult. So at the moment, I just recorded that in JSON in the turn matrix, and so nobody else has information in the turn matrix except for the cleric. So if someone tries to turn something or something and you're not a cleric, then there's nothing there. But if you are a cleric, then consult the turn matrix, and so there's all your turning information for the undead. I mean, it goes to show you that these role-playing games are rather complicated if you were trying to put them into something that's real like rectangular in data structure. Then I went over here to skills. I had come up with a list of Hacked Edge skills, and I had just used a 1 in 6 system for them. Are these all the skills? But I ended up having to add a bunch of different skills. Let's see. Like, for instance, I didn't want to do anything like non-weapon proficiencies, because these are all adventuring classes. So if you need something that's a non-adventuring kind of skill, you need to hire that. That's gonna be something that an NPC is gonna do. But like, what are the main skills that adventurers should be able to do? And I had come up with bushcraft, climb, critical care, hide, ride, search, swim, hear noise, and hear noise. Then I had to add also open locks and sleight of hand for thieves, but nobody else gets those besides thieves. So I was trying to say, okay, so everybody, like bushcraft, climbing, critical care, hiding, riding, and searching, and swimming, and I think hearing noise as well. Everybody has a default of 1d6, a 1 out of 6 chance of accomplishing that task. So that keeps the issue that, like, oh, if you give that as a mechanic to a certain class, that means other people can't. No, other people can. Here's your base of 1 out of 6 chance for bushcraft, for climbing, for critical care, for hiding. Okay, but then other people and other classes may have higher by level. But then again, open locks and sleight of hand, everybody starts at a 0 at, except for thieves. Those are thief only skills. So like the cleric here is rather normal with skills. 1 out of 6 on climb, 1 out of 6 on hide, 1 out of 6 on ride, 1 out of 6 on search. And I didn't distinguish between searching for traps and searching for treasure. I was like, this is a search skill. Swimming, noise, But the cleric also starts at a 2 out of 6 for critical care, which is like, bandaging a damaged opponent. Not a damaged ally, rather. Let's see. So I put all of those in. So that gives all the skills a 1 out of 6. I believe is that the thief right there that goes up? Oh no, the dwarf goes up in searching as he goes up in level. I tried not to have a bunch of things where like, now choose this or this when you go up in level. It just tells you now what happens. I might have also had to put in a learn language. Skill search going up. That's probably thief right there that's going up. The thief goes up, and the thief is the skill monkey. So the thief goes up in not only their skills, their specialist skills, but also going up in climb. Now, critical care or not, but they go up in hide. They don't go up in ride. They do go up in search. They go up in hear noise, open locks, sleight of hand, and then also backstab in order to make that something that is mechanical. We'll have to talk about what backstab is. But I went ahead and gave levels to backstab, and nobody else has backstab besides thief. Skill read languages. That's something that a thief has once they reach a certain level. And so I decided to use the same kind of out of D6, because Old School Essentials still preserved the way that it was, that some of the skills are rolled out of D6 and some of them are rolled out of percentiles. And it's just kind of arbitrary. But I tried to make everything an out of D6 skill system. So even their ability to read unknown languages goes out of D6 over here. Scroll and see this. The thieves can read and use arcane scrolls. But there's a 10% chance of failure. They can read it. They can start doing that. They can start using arcane. They can start using arcane scrolls at a certain level, but there's a 10% failure rate. And so I've decided to try to encode that into this database by saying, if the value is null, you cannot use an arcane scroll at all. I try to use the arcane scroll. You can't, because you have a null here. If there's a value here, it's your failure percentage. So a magic user has a 0% failure percentage, and then the thief has a 10% failure percentage. And then likewise, I had to distinguish between arcane and divine scrolls, because the cleric, we only want the cleric to be able to use divine scrolls. So everybody gets a null in divine scrolls, except for zeros, which indicate that, yes, you can use it with a 0% failure rate for clerics. So if you are trying to build out or trying to put in something that is close to OSE into some kind of database, this is what I came up with. It may not be 100% perfect yet. I'm sure it's not. But it's pretty good. Yes, it is. There's BGD. I was just talking about the game we played last night. So yes, a busy night working with, more than just spreadsheets, but whole databases. I did also load in, all of these over here are our small tables about OSE has stuff that you get for different values of your attributes, your main abilities. Like, for instance, this is the dexterity, and so this is a missile mod, and here is an initiative mod. And I'm still not sure how I'm dealing with initiative, but I went ahead and threw it in there. The Constitution, I was playing with the idea of adjusting poison saves by Constitution, or also regenerating stamina based on Constitution. But I I'm still playing with that. We're gonna have to look at those whole rules, which we may end up having to look at next time. This is basically what I was looking at and creating in the back end kind of structure. But I do like that it's saved, and I confirmed that it is accessible by API. So if you're trying to reach in and you're trying to get some kind of data on this, you can actually do it. In order to actually create something that you like, playable or something like that, I was still working on login authentication. Let me take this down. It also kind of establishes a source of truth, so that when you're writing out some type of just tabletop RPG book, you're like, okay, no, what is our actually source of truth? Because when I'm writing in Scrivener, especially like putting it into one of its tables, I hate the way they format those tables. It'd be better to just be able to extract it from a database. And all of a sudden, like this, we've been going for 51 minutes. But what I was also kind of doing simultaneously as I was building that out, I was also going to the Hacked Edge. Let me stop sharing this. I was like, let me make sure that I'm recording what's going on in just a human readable RPG kind of format here. There we go. And so I was having this, right? Which we've looked at before, but then here was like creating a character. So as I was going through there, I was like, okay, how are we going to create a character? And this needs a lot more thought, because if this is going to be coded into a character creator or something like that, it needs to be correct in both locations. I was having people, okay, you're defined by 6 core ability scores. Roll 3d6 for each ability score in the order listed below. So you're going 3d6 straight down. And it's 3d6 straight down. And in Old School Essentials, but I was even looking at the Advanced Dungeons and Dragons book, the modifiers, which it is often nice to have a core modifier, I thought, like a standard modifier. To have somebody roll something and have some kind of standard modifier. But the old school games have those tables, and they don't start giving modifiers to anything until you are 13 or above. In 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons, you're used to, I've got a dex of 12 or a con of 12 or whatever, and so I get something. It's only the 10s and 11s that don't get anything, and then the 9s start getting penalties. But that's not the way the old school games go. You don't start getting penalties until 8, I believe it is, or is it 7? Well, I can't remember the low end, but it's a much low end, and you don't start getting advantages until something like 14. I guess I have the whole. I got my whole table exactly over here in my database. Yeah, like for instance, if you want a positive modifier to your melee attack, then you don't get that until you have a 13, not a 12. You don't get that until you start going to a 13. So the curve is much flatter kind of in these old school games, where what's considered normal are like 9s, 10s, 11s, and 12s. Instead of just 10s and 11s, 9s, 10s, 11s, and 12s. So you don't start getting penalized. I guess the advantage is you don't start getting penalized until 8. But you don't start getting an advantage until about 13 either. And I was trying to put in the shopkeeper rule. So the shopkeeper rule, if you roll a character with no ability score above 8, you may discard that character and start over. You can also be free to play it. But I was also, I learned a lot about client and server side, managing the client and server side kind of tasks for this. If you're going to do something like a character generator. Now, it might not matter if somebody's cheating if you're just doing a character generator, but it would be if you're trying to actually play a game, because if you're sending a bunch of stuff that's out to the browser and client side, that means it's potentially manipulable by the person who's receiving it. If you let something like Supabase, and I've been learning a lot about how to use it, handle all of the logic of the game, then all of the logic is going on the server, and you know that you're not having somebody cheat basically on their character creation. So this would be, but I still said that, hey, if you're not above 8, just discard and start over. And then select one of the classes available. See character classes. Some classes have minimum scores for some ability scores. Some classes have minimums. What did I just say? Some classes have minimums for some ability scores, which may disqualify you from choosing certain classes. For example, dwarf can only be selected so long as the character's con is 9 or greater. The chosen class determines your character's race. Unless a demi-human class, dwarf, elf, or halfling is selected, the character is human. But also, as we talked about on one of the live streams, the restrictions on classes are not that great. I mean, most of them are only something like a 9. Oh, you'll need a 9 in this or a 9 in that. And there is no restriction on fighter. You can be a fighter and have any type of statistics that you want. I think that came in later. I think I was looking up whether that was Advanced Dungeons and Dragons in my 2nd edition books, that fighter did have a minimum strength of 9. But in Old School Essentials, it doesn't. It's like you can always qualify for a fighter even if you've got a strength of 6. Now, Old School Essentials allows you to do this. And I've always wondered, I think we need to adjust the phraseology of this. This isn't exactly their phraseology. But it says, if you desire, you may raise your character's prime requisites for your characters by lowering other non-prime requisite ability scores. For every 2 points by which an ability score is reduced, 1 point may be added to a prime requisite. The following restrictions apply. Only strength, intelligence, and wisdom may be lowered in this way, and no score may be lowered below 9. I think that can be written more elegantly. If you desire, you may raise your character's prime requisites. Your character's prime requisites. I don't know why it says of your character over here. By lowering well, it would be either strength, intelligence, or wisdom, so long as it is not also a prime requisite for your character. Is that getting across what I think it's supposed to be getting across? For the character class, for every 2 points by which one of those ability scores is reduced, 1 point may be added to a prime requisite. However, no score may be lowered below 9. Some character classes may have additional constraints. Let's see here. Determine standard ability score modifiers. Like I said, this was something that I thought that I was missing. We could call it the base ability modifier, like having that, which is kind of 5th edition like. But if you, hey, give me, I felt like it was missing. I felt like I really wanted it when I was playing Advanced Dungeons and Dragons with my nephews, and like having them, oh, give me a roll of a this or whatever. But they had no kinds of ability modifiers on any of their abilities to roll. Do we need this? Do we need checks to be basic roll under checks? if you do it this way, it uses target numbers, which I think is more standard today. Uses target numbers. Whereas a basic roll under check is more GURPS-like. But I do like, when you're like, okay, give me a dex check, roll equal to or under your stat. I don't know, but I'm not sure about that. But I feel like there needs to be some kind of easy way and standard way to make some kind of check. Determining a basic modifier does help because it makes it something that can apply to something else really easily. Roll a check to do this. Oh, well, does my dexterity apply or whatever? Okay, I'm +3 at that. That allows that to be very easily transferable. And I think probably when we were playing AD&D, we would just do a roll under check. But on the other hand, it might not have come up all that often. It may not have really been that kind of big a thing. It might not have really been something we thought about until like 3rd edition, and now I feel like it's something that's missing when you go back to something earlier than that. And then we've got those tables, but in a very old school kind of way. You don't just take a standard ability score and apply it to your damage or whatever. If it's strength, there are certain tables that tell you what needs to apply, what applies to what. So anyway, that's what I've been working on. It was a non-standard night to be streaming, but that's because I had a fantastic time at the gaming table yesterday. So if you were here or you're watching on replay, this is what I've been working on for a little while and trying to get all this up and running. I'm excited about it. It's a lot more work. This is another, dipping my toe into the area of, okay, can you create something like the online relational database, which can be used to do character generators and potentially games. Potentially, I mean, you'd have to have all that loaded in for anyway to do something like a text-based adventure game. And it's even possible to create something like that by someone like me with given today's tech. So, but this is the first time that I've thought about that maybe it's potentially right or potentially possible. But either way, we would need to have all of that information put up online. So I'm working on loading it up. So yes, you're right. I know, Save, you're right. We still have not played an RPG session. We do have to fix that. I'm very glad you're here tonight. I know you've got a lot more stuff going on. You've changed jobs and all of that. So I was thinking about you today, actually. All right. Well, thank you. Yeah, we will see. And who knows? Does something like that exist for Index Card RPG? I don't know. Does somebody have that kind of, I know that the Index Card VTT doesn't handle math, the game math. And I think that's probably the right choice. I mean, when we play with it, we don't need it. But I don't know if there are accessible relational databases that with Index Card RPG stats out there. I don't know. All right. Well, I will see everybody later. So probably we'll stream again Wednesday night and keep going. I guess we'll actually talk about more of those rules because I want to make sure the rules are right before they start getting encoded into anything. So I will talk to you later. Have a wonderful evening. I think I'll see you Wednesday.